I was 81 years old on the morning I realized my own blood had stolen from me, my grandson Luke. You'd think at my age a man gets used to loss. Hell, I'd already buried friends, a wife, and most of my pride. But nothing prepared me for the sight I saw that April morning in 2023, sitting at my kitchen table in Dayton, Ohio, with the sun hitting my coffee just right, making the steam glow like something holy, right before everything got ripped apart. I remember the exact smell of that moment, burnt toast, Folgers, and the faint must of the old linoleum floors I never got around to replacing. My hands shook the way they do when the arthritis flares up in spring. I tapped the side of my laptop, waiting for the bank's website to load. "Come on, old timer," I muttered at the machine, half laughing at myself. You know how it is, technology moves fast, but old men don't. I wasn't expecting anything dramatic. It was just a routine check of my savings account, the one I'd built since I retired from the GM plant back in 2006. 35 solid years on that line. My back still stiffens when I think about those night shifts. That money wasn't just dollars. It was proof I'd busted my knuckles for something that meant something. That's when the number popped up on the screen. $4,862.14. I blinked, leaned forward. Hit refresh. Same number. Then I whispered, No, that's not right. My voice cracked like it had when I was a kid trying to lie to my father. I should have been looking at $32,800. I knew that number by heart. I'd run it 1,000 times in my head, figuring out how long I could stay in this old house before moving somewhere smaller. Before maybe, God forbid, moving in with family. So I clicked Account Activity. And there it was. 7 transfers, all within the last 3 months. Clean, even numbers, $3,000 here, $2,500 there, and one that made my stomach twist like someone reached inside and wrung my guts. $10,000, LUKEMSTRATTON. My grandson. My late daughter's boy. The kid I used to take fishing at Buck Creek when he was 8. The same boy who cried into my coat at his mother's funeral in 2009, shaking like a leaf because he didn't understand why God takes the good ones. I held him and promised him I'd always be around. And now here he was, reaching back through time, grabbing what little security I still had left. My first thought wasn't anger. It was shame. What did I do wrong? I muttered to the empty kitchen. My voice echoed a bit. It always did since Mary passed. The house got too big without her. I picked up the phone, my hand shaking so hard I had to steady it against the table. I dialed Luke. It rang 4 times. He picked up on the 5th. "Hey, Gramps," he said, too cheerful, too smooth, a practiced tone. "Luke," I said, trying to swallow the dryness in my throat. I need to ask you something." "Yeah, everything okay?" "No," I said, "it's not." My chest tightened. "Did you take money from my savings account?" Silence. Not long, half a second maybe, but I heard it. That pause a liar makes while they grab a mask. "What? No, Gramps, what are you talking about?" I closed my eyes. I could picture him, his jaw tightening, that little twitch under his left eye he gets when he's nervous. I used to tease him about it when he was a kid. "Poker's not your game, buddy," I used to say. He'd laugh. I'd laugh. "Luke," I said softly, "I saw the transfers." A breath on the other end, then a forced exhale. "Look, I was gonna talk to you. Things have been rough. I needed help." "You didn't ask," I said. "You stole." "Gramps, don't say it like that. I was gonna pay it back." "That's $27,000. He didn't speak. I felt a coldness move through me I hadn't felt since Vietnam. 69. The kind of cold that sits inside your bones, not on your skin. The kind that tells you something's changed, and no matter what you do, you're never getting back to where you were. "You listen to me," I said, my voice low, steady. "This isn't just money. This is my life, my future, the only security I've got." "Gramps, please." "No," I cut in. "Here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna come over today. We're gonna talk face to face, and you're gonna tell me the truth." He hesitated again. "I can't today. I've got stuff." "You'll be here," I said, "by 2 o'clock. Another long silence. Fine, he muttered, too. He hung up. I sat there staring at my reflection in the darkened laptop screen. My face looked older than I remembered, deep lines, tired eyes, that stubborn gray stubble I never fully shaved anymore. But behind all that, something new sat there. A spark. Not anger. Not yet. But something close, something old and sharp, something I thought I'd buried a long time ago. You're probably wondering what I plan to do next. How an 81-year-old man was supposed to stand up to a younger, stronger relative who'd already stolen from him. But I wasn't thinking about age. I was thinking about truth, and how I was going to drag it out of him, no matter what. Before all this happened, before the lies, before the missing money, before I started shaking whenever the phone rang, I want you to understand something about me. I wasn't always this worn-down old man sitting at a kitchen table, squinting at numbers that didn't add up. I lived a long damn life before the betrayal hit. A life full of work, sweat, family, and a kind of pride that only comes from doing things the hard way. I was born in 1942 in Springfield, Ohio. My old man worked at International Harvester until his back gave out. I followed in his footsteps, the way boys did back then. Not because we had dreams of climbing some corporate ladder, but because you got a job where you could, kept your head down, and did right by your family. When GM opened their plant in Moraine, I was 21, fresh out of the Army. They put me on the assembly line. Hardest damn job I ever had, but it put food on the table and kept the lights on. Mary used to meet me at the door every night, wiping oil off my cheek with the side of her thumb, saying, "Looks like the machine's lost again." Lord, I miss that woman. She smelled like ivory soap and warm laundry. Cancer took her 20 years ago, and some days I still reach across the bed expecting her to be there. We raised one daughter, Cynthia, Luke's mama, bright girl, smarter than me in every way that counted. She was the first in our family to go to college, first to work behind a desk instead of a machine. When she passed in 2009, car accident on I-75, I damn near broke in half. Luke was just 16. I remember the funeral like it happened last night. April rain, the cold kind that gets into your joints. Luke stood next to me in that too big suit, his hands balled in fists. He asked me, "Why did God take her?" And I didn't have an answer good enough for a boy losing his mother. After that, I tried to be there for him, really tried. He'd come over after school and I'd grill hot dogs out back even in the snow. We watched Reds games, fixed up my old Ford F-150 and argued over whether LeBron was overrated. We weren't just grandfather and grandson, we were a team. Or at least that's what I thought. Luke was a sweet kid. He used to pick up groceries for me without being asked. He'd carry my laundry basket downstairs like it was nothing. He even fixed the Wi-Fi a few times when the damn router kept blinking like a Christmas tree. But somewhere around his early 20s, something changed. Maybe it was the crowd he fell in with. Maybe it was the debt he piled up. Maybe it was the world just moving too fast for him to keep up. I don't know. All I know is that by the time he hit 29, he wasn't the same kid I'd watched grow up. I remember the first time I saw the change. It was 2021. He came over one night asking if I could spot him a little something. Just $1,000, he said. Just until payday. He had this nervous tremor in his voice like a man holding back bad news, and I, being the soft-hearted old fool I was, gave it to him. Told myself it was just a rough patch. Told myself family sticks together. But he never paid it back. Didn't even bring it up. And I didn't push it because the truth is, I like being needed. When a man gets past 80, people stop asking for his help. You start feeling useless, invisible. So when your grandson comes around, sits across from you at the table, calls you Gramps, you let things slide. You tell yourself it's still the same bond. You ignore the little signs. There were moments, small ones that should have warned me, like how he started dropping by less, only when he needed something, or how he'd look at my mail on the counter a second too long, or how he'd say things like, "You probably don't need all that savings anyway, right? You live pretty simple." I'd laugh it off, stupid, stupid man. But we weren't always like that. There were good times too. 4th of July barbecues, neighbors setting off fireworks illegally in the cul-de-sac. Thanksgiving dinners with too dry turkey but perfect gravy. trips to the VFW hall where old men told lies about their glory days. Luke used to sit at those tables wide-eyed, listening to stories about boot camp fights, drunk sergeants, and the kind of camaraderie men don't find anymore. He once said, "I want to be the kind of man you are, Gramps." That one sentence kept me blind for years. You asked what life was like before the betrayal. It was ordinary, quiet, predictable. I woke up at 6 every morning even though I had nowhere to be. I made coffee strong enough to take the paint off a wall. I walked the neighborhood with my old dog Max until he passed in 2017, and after that I walked alone. In the afternoons, I'd tinker in the garage fixing broken lawnmowers, reshaping old scrap wood into birdhouses I gave away to anyone who wanted one. And at night, I'd sit in my armchair, watching the news or flipping through old photo albums. I'd look at pictures of Luke as a little boy, missing front teeth, bowl-cut hair, holding a catfish he caught with both hands like it was some mythical creature. Back then, I still believed the world was mostly fair. I still believed family meant something. I still believed Luke would never hurt me. That's the part that stings the most, not the money, not even the lies. It's that I let myself believe he was one of the good ones, that I'd done something right raising my daughter, and that she'd done something right raising him. But pain has a way of sharpening a man's memory. And when I sat at that table at 81 years old, staring at those missing dollars, every ignored warning, every uneasy moment, every strange hesitation in his voice, it all came back. And the man I was before, he disappeared. A different man took his place, a quieter one, a colder one who wasn't going to let this slide. You'll see what I mean soon enough. I spent the hours before 2 o'clock pacing the living room, listening to the old floorboards complain under my feet. I hadn't paced like that since Mary was in the hospital all those years ago. My heart kept kicking against my ribs, not out of fear exactly, but from something rawer, something like humiliation. You ever feel that hot shame burn the back of your neck? That's what I felt every time my mind circled back to those missing transfers. I kept checking the window, watching for Luke's car. The clock above the fireplace ticked so loud it sounded like it was mocking me. At 1:55, no sign of him. At 2:03, still nothing. At 2:11, I started thinking he wasn't gonna come, and that pissed me off more than the theft. But at 2:17, funny how the numbers that hurt you freeze in your mind, his silver Honda rolled up the curb. He sat in the driver's seat a moment, shoulders hunched, rubbing his forehead. I recognized that posture. That was the posture of a man preparing a story. I opened the door before he could knock. He looked surprised, like maybe he hoped I'd pretend I wasn't home. "Hey, Gramps," he said, giving me this weak half-smile. "Come in," I told him. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded steadier, lower, like it had gravel in it. He stepped inside. He smelled faintly of cheap cologne and stress sweat. His eyes darted around the house like he was checking the place for cameras. If only he knew how close to the truth that thought would get. We sat at the kitchen table. Same table Mary and I bought at a yard sale in '78. Same table where Luke used to draw with crayons while I drank my Saturday morning coffee. He didn't look at me at first. He just rubbed his thumb over a scratch on the wood surface like he was stalling. So he finally muttered, "You saw the transfers." "I saw everything," I said. He nodded, took a long breath through his nose, then finally looked up at me. His eyes were bloodshot, tired. "I didn't want it to happen like this." That sentence right there, "didn't want it to happen like this," that was the first crack. The first moment my denial finally broke, because innocent men don't say things like that. Guilty men do. Guilty men who think they can still talk their way out. "How did you want it to happen?" I asked. He hesitated, that twitch under his left eye flared. "I was gonna tell you, I just needed time." "Time for what?" I asked. "To fix things." "Fix what?" I leaned forward. "Luke, I need you to say it out loud." He swallowed so hard I could hear it. His eyes drifted down again. I waited. I didn't fill the silence. When you're 81, you learn patience the way some men learn fishing. In those long seconds, I watched guilt crawl across his face like a shadow. "I took the money," he whispered. "Look at me when you say it." He did, And for a moment, I didn't see the grown man sitting across from me. I saw the little boy who held my hand at his mother's funeral, and that nearly broke me. "I took it," he said again, voice cracking. My throat closed up. I pushed through it anyway. "Why?" "I got into some trouble," he said. "Debt. Some guys I shouldn't have borrowed from." "What kind of debt?" "Credit cards, loans," he shifted in his chair, "and some gambling." That hit harder than the theft. Gambling was a monster I'd seen devour men whole at the plant. Paychecks gone, marriages ruined. I'd seen good men turn into strangers chasing losses they were never going to recover. "How much?" I asked. "I don't know," he said too quickly. I slammed my palm on the table, hard. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. He jumped. "How much?" 30, maybe 40 grand, he muttered. "Jesus." "And you figured you'd take mine to cover it," I said. "I was gonna pay you back," he snapped. "I just needed a little time." "You stole $27,000 from an old man living off Social Security," I said. "That's not a little time. That's survival money, Luke." He buried his head in his hands. "I know, Gramps, I screwed up. I know I did." "I trusted you," I whispered. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence between us felt like a room filling with water. After a while, he finally lifted his head. "Just don't call the cops, okay? Please, I can fix this, I swear. I'll get a second job or something." "You'd have to live to pay it back," I said without thinking. He froze, his eyes widened. "What's that supposed to mean?" I leaned back in my chair and studied him. The kid looked terrified. And maybe he should have been, not because I'd hurt him, but because life was gonna hurt him, and he dragged me into its path with him. "It means," I said slowly, "you've put us both in a bad spot. Whoever you owe that money to, do they know you don't have it?" He looked away. That told me everything. And that's when the fear set in, not for myself, no, but for him. For the boy who made 100 stupid choices, all of which pointed toward one truth. He was in deep, and he dragged my savings into the hole with him. "Luke," I said softer now, "who are these men?" He didn't answer. "Luke, they're not the kind of people you talk to," he whispered. "Well, they're the kind of people I'm involved with now," I said, "because of you." He looked up suddenly, eyes glistening. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." I studied him for a long moment. "Sorry doesn't fix this." "I know. You're gonna pay me back every penny," I said. He nodded like a boy caught stealing candy. "And you're going to tell me everything." He hesitated. That hesitation was the second crack, the one that told me the truth was bigger than I realized. "Gramps, I didn't just take the money." My blood froze. He looked at me with a kind of fear that wasn't fear of me, but fear of what telling me would unleash. "I did something else," he whispered, "something with your name." "What did you do?" His lips trembled. "I signed for something in your place." I felt something in my chest fracture. It wasn't a break. It was the beginning of one, the pressure before the snap. "What did you sign?" I whispered. He didn't speak for several seconds. Then he said the 4 words that tilted the ground under me. "Power of attorney paperwork." My breath stopped. "You forged my signature," I rasped. He nodded barely. For a moment I couldn't see. My vision went white around the edges. I gripped the arm of the chair, feeling the familiar ache of old bones, but this time sharper, hotter. You'd think the theft was the betrayal, but that wasn't even close. This was the part that tore something inside me clean open. "Get out," I whispered. "Gramps, get out." He stood slowly, shoulders shaking, shame carved deep into every line of his posture. He walked to the door. Before he left, he turned back. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he said. "It went exactly as far as you pushed it," I said. He left without another word. When the door clicked shut, the house became so quiet I swear I could hear my heartbeat echoing. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty chair where he'd been, the seat still warm. That warmth made me angrier than anything else. Because it reminded me I wasn't imagining this. My own grandson had betrayed me. And for the first time in my life, I understood what men mean when they say a fire started in them. Mine started that day. And it wasn't going out. I didn't move for a long time after Luke walked out that door. The house felt different, like something inside it had cracked along with me. The air was heavy, stale, the kind of stillness that settles over a room after a fight nobody won. I kept staring at that chair he'd been sitting in, watching the faint impression his weight left in the cushion. That stupid little detail gnawed at me. It reminded me he'd been here, alive, warm, real, and that he'd lied to my face. It took a while before I could stand. My knees, already stiff from the spring weather, felt like they had cinder blocks tied to them. I steadied myself on the table, my hand brushing the laptop I'd left open earlier that morning. The screen had gone dark, my reflection staring back at me like a ghost. Power of attorney. He said it so softly I almost wasn't sure I heard it right, but those words didn't go away. They hung in the room like smoke. You know, it's one thing for someone to take money. People can justify stealing. Desperation drives men to dark corners. But signing your name on legal paperwork meant a hand over control of your whole damn life. That's something else. That's not theft. That's ownership. That's someone thinking he can speak as you, decide for you, erase you while you're still breathing. I don't remember lowering myself into my armchair, but suddenly I was there, sinking into it like a man twice my age. My hands trembled, not from old bones, but from rage. Pure, unfiltered rage, the kind I haven't felt since Vietnam. I'd buried that part of myself decades ago, but betrayal has a way of digging up old ghosts. I picked up my phone after a while. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. I checked for messages even though I knew Luke wasn't going to text, and he hadn't. But there was a voicemail. From the bank. The timestamp read 11:14 a.m., about an hour before I found the missing money. I pressed play. Mr. Stratton, this is Alan from Springfield First. We're calling regarding some recent account changes and activity. It's important we speak with you as soon as possible. Please return our call. Account changes. Those two words hit me like a punch to the gut. I dialed back immediately. The automated system kept me waiting 4.5 minutes, long enough for me to start tapping my foot the way Mary used to scold me for. Finally, a man picked up. Springfield First Bank, this is Alan speaking. This is Robert Stratton, I said. You called me earlier. Oh yes, sir. Thank you for calling back. We detected some unusual changes in your account profile this week and wanted to verify them with you. What kind of changes? I asked. Well, the first was an update to your mailing address, switched from your current street address to an apartment complex in Columbus. Then there were changes to your contact email and authorization updates for your power of attorney paperwork. My grip on the phone tightened so hard, my knuckles went white. What authorization? I asked. It looks like your designated representative initiated a request for full access. We just need to confirm that you approved this. My what? I whispered. Your representative, listed as Luke M. Stratton. My chest felt like someone had cinched a belt around it. Sir, Alan asked, did you approve these changes? No, I said, my voice shaking. I didn't approve a damn thing. Alan sucked in a breath. He tried to hide it, but I heard it anyway, the sound of a man realizing something serious just landed in his lap. Mr. Stratton, thank you. We're going to freeze those authorizations immediately. I also recommend coming in as soon as possible so we can file a fraud report. I'll be there tomorrow, I said. Of course, sir. I'll put your name in the system. I hung up. My hand shook so violently I had to set the phone down on the coffee table before I dropped it. My whole body buzzed, like adrenaline had taken over, like I'd been plugged into a power line. I stared at the wall for a long time. Then I said it out loud because hearing it made it real. He tried to take my life. Not kill me, no, but something that runs close. He tried to steal control, my autonomy, my freedom, my decision-making. The very things an old man clings to when the world starts treating him like he's disposable. Power of attorney meant my banking, my medical decisions, my home, my future, all of it. A stroke, a fall, a single bad night, and he could have swooped in like a vulture and claimed everything. Mary would have fainted dead away hearing this. She always said Luke had a soft heart, that he'd grow into a good man. I could almost hear her voice saying, "Not our boy Robert, not our Luke." And maybe that's what hurt, knowing she wasn't here to see the truth. Or maybe it was better she was. The house felt colder after that. I tried to stand, but the room spun a bit. I steadied myself on the arm of the chair. That's when something unexpected happened. My vision blurred. At first I thought it was age catching up again, but then I felt the warmth on my cheeks. I hadn't cried in years, not since Mary died. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, angry at myself for it, but the tears came anyway. Slow, stubborn, just enough to sting. I sat back down and let myself feel it. Grief, betrayal, fury, humiliation, and something worse than all of it, guilt. Guilt for not seeing the signs. Guilt for trusting too much. Guilt for being old enough to be an easy target. After a while, I heard a car pass outside. It pulled me back to the present. I took a deep breath and thought about my next move. I wasn't going to be some helpless old fool in a news headline, elderly man defrauded by family. I wasn't letting that happen. Not to me. Not at 81. I got up and went to my bedroom, slower than I used to but still steady. I picked up my old Timex watch from the dresser, the one Mary bought me on our 25th anniversary. I strapped it on. It felt like armor. Then I grabbed my notebook, the one I used to track bills and grocery lists, and flipped it open to a blank page. I wrote at the top, "What Luke did." Underneath, bullet point by bullet point, I wrote everything I knew so far. The transfers, the forged signature, the banking changes, the debt, the lies. My handwriting was shaky, but the words were solid. I stared at that page for a long time. Then I wrote one more line. "This isn't over." A sound startled me, a light knock at the front door. My heart jumped into my throat. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked to the living room window and peeked through the curtain. It was Luke. It was a woman I didn't recognize, mid-30s maybe, wearing scrubs from Miami Valley Hospital. She knocked again, gentler this time. "Mr. Stratton," she called. "I'm Nurse Bailey. I need to speak with you about your grandson." My blood ran cold. "What now?" I opened the door, shoulders tight, bracing for the worst. She looked nervous, her fingers tapping the clipboard she held. "Sir, we need to talk." I stood in the doorway, heart pounding, realizing this day wasn't done with me yet. Because whatever Luke had dragged me into, it was deeper than I thought. And this nurse had come to confirm it. Nurse Bailey stood on my porch with this look, part concern, part hesitation, part something she wasn't sure she had the right to say. I'd seen that look before. It's the look people give an old man when they're not sure how much truth he can handle. The late afternoon light hit her scrubs, making the hospital logo shine faintly. The air smelled like cut grass and the faint sweetness of someone grilling 2 houses down. It felt absurd that something so normal could happen while my life was coming apart at the seams. "Mr. Stratton," she said softly, "may I come in?" I hesitated. Every instinct in me screamed to protect what little ground I had left, but the way she held her clipboard tight, like the news inside it bothered her, made me step aside. Once inside, she glanced around the living room like she didn't quite know where to sit. I gestured toward the armchair across from mine. She perched on the edge of it, hands folded tight in her lap. "My name is Bailey Morgan," she said. "I work in the ER at Miami Valley. I'm off duty right now, but I came because I thought you needed to know something." My heart thumped. "About Luke?" "Yes." I felt a coldness crawl up my spine. "Is he hurt?" "No," she said quickly, "not physically." "Then what is it?" She took a breath that steadied her voice. "He came into the ER last night. He wasn't the patient, his friend was. A man with injuries consistent with, well, with someone who owed money he didn't have." I closed my eyes briefly. The edges of the room pulsed, not from dizziness but from dread pooling in my gut. "When the police questioned the friend," she said, Your grandson tried to talk over him, stop him from saying something. I heard him mention a name, Stratton, and then he said something about paperwork, power of attorney. He said he needed access to his grandfather's accounts. Her eyes lifted to mine. That's you, right? You're his only living grandfather. Yeah, I whispered, that's me. I wasn't sure what was going on, she said, but he looked desperate, scared, and angry like a man cornered. He was, I muttered. She nodded slowly. The police let them go, but something didn't sit right with me. I checked the county database this morning. Someone submitted a POA packet with your name on it 2 days ago. It's not official yet, but it's in review. I felt the blood drain from my face. She leaned forward. Mr. Stratton, do you have dementia, any cognitive issues, any condition that would require someone to manage your affairs? My mind's sharp, I said, sharper than ever now. I didn't authorize anything. She nodded again, and this time I saw fire in her eyes, anger on my behalf. I thought so, because the signature on the packet, it didn't look like it was written by an 81-year-old man, not one with tremor or arthritis. My jaw tightened. He forged it. That's what I believe, she said. I rubbed my temple. The skin there felt thin, fragile, like old paper. Why are you telling me all this? She exhaled. Because I've seen this before. A lot, unfortunately. Older patients who get tricked, coerced, or outright robbed by family members. Sometimes they come into the ER after a fall or dehydrated or confused, and we find out someone has been controlling their money, their meds, their entire lives. It's an epidemic, honestly. And when I saw the name Stratton and the details didn't line up, I figured you deserved to know. I looked at her for a long moment. Thank you, I said quietly. Most people wouldn't bother. She smiled faintly. My grandpa raised me. I owe him everything. I guess I have a soft spot. We talked for a while longer. She explained what steps the county might take if the POA went through. How it wasn't just about my money. It could have given Luke authority over where I lived, what treatments I got if something happened, even decisions about selling my home. Hearing it all spelled out like that felt like someone tightening a belt around my ribs. At one point she said, "You're lucky you caught it early. Some people don't." Lucky? The word felt wrong in my mouth. After she left, I sat in my armchair staring at the door long after it closed, her words echoing around in my head. The sunlight shifted across the carpet, moving slowly toward the wall as the evening settled in. My house had never felt so big and empty. You want to know the moment everything truly shattered? It wasn't hearing that Luke forged my signature. It wasn't the missing money. It wasn't even the nurse confirming what I already feared. It was what happened next. Around 6 that evening, I tried to make dinner, just something simple, scrambled eggs and toast, but my hands wouldn't stay steady. The eggs slid off the spatula, the toast burned, and I dropped the damn salt shaker. It shattered on the kitchen tile, salt exploding everywhere like snow. I froze. My breath caught. My vision blurred. And for a moment, just a brief, terrifying moment, I felt 81 in every bone, every muscle, every failing piece of me. I felt small, weak, beaten, like the world had shifted from under me and I wasn't sure I had the strength to stand on it anymore. I hated that feeling. Hated it so much I stepped away from the stove, leaned on the counter, and forced myself to breathe until the panic passed. I cleaned up the mess slowly, carefully, not because I couldn't move faster, but because I didn't trust myself not to fall apart again. Once the kitchen was quiet, I turned off the lights and went back to the living room. I sat in the dark for a while, letting my eyes adjust, listening to the creaks of the house settling. This home had held 40 years of my life. It had seen birthdays, Christmas mornings, arguments, reconciliations, grief, joy, and everything in between. Now it felt foreign, unsafe. Because my grandson, the kid I once trusted with the keys to my truck, had tried to take it from me. I don't know how long I sat there, long enough that the shadows changed shape, long enough that something inside me started hardening. The descent didn't come all at once. It came in layers the way winter creeps in, first a chill, then a frost, then ice that cracks everything it touches. Around 9 o'clock my phone buzzed. A text. From Luke. Hey, I'm sorry about earlier, I'm fixing it. Just give me a couple days. Don't do anything stupid. I read it twice. Don't do anything stupid. The boy who stole my savings. The boy who forged documents with my name. The boy who dragged me into a financial hell he created. Was telling me not to do anything stupid. I felt something in my chest twist. Not fear, not sadness. Something colder. I didn't text him back. But I did open my notebook again. And on the next empty page I wrote, he thinks I'm helpless. Let HIM think it. That's how I'll win. My hand didn't shake that time. Later that night I climbed into bed. The sheets felt too cold, the room too quiet. My thoughts kept circling back to Luke's face at the table, the guilt, the fear, the desperation. A younger man might have called it a warning sign, but I knew better. It was a confession. Not the kind he meant to give, but the most honest one he'd ever shown me. He wasn't done with me. And I wasn't done with him either. As I lay there staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep, I whispered into the dark. You picked the wrong old man. And I meant it. Because what happens next? The gathering, the planning, the slow and steady work of a man with nothing left to lose and a lifetime of patience. That part was coming. And God help him, he had no idea who he was dealing with. The next morning started earlier than I wanted. I didn't sleep more than a couple of hours. My mind wouldn't let me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Luke's face across that kitchen table, saw the guilt in his jawline and the fear in his eyes, saw the boy I once raised and the man he'd become layered on top of each other like bad tracing paper. I got out of bed around 5:15. My joints creaked, protesting like rusty hinges. I shuffled to the kitchen, turned on the coffee maker, and listened to it sputter and groan to life. The smell of brewing Folgers grounded me, one of the few things in my life that hadn't changed. I pulled out my notebook, the one where I'd written down everything Luke had done, and stared at the page. The bullet points looked back at me like charges on an indictment, and that last line I'd written the night before felt like it was burning through the paper. He thinks I'm helpless. Let him think it. That's how I'll win. I took a slow sip of coffee and felt something in me steady. The fog of fear wasn't gone, not exactly, but it had burned off just enough for clarity to poke through. I needed help, but not the kind Luke would expect. Around 8:30, after showering and putting on my old flannel and jeans, I drove to the bank. The morning air was cool, the kind of Ohio chill that bites at your ears. Springfield First Bank sat on the corner of Fountain Avenue, same place it had been since the 70s. The automatic doors hissed open and I stepped inside. The teller recognized me, small town, same bank for decades, and offered a polite smile. "Morning, Mr. Stratt, here to see Alan." "Yes, ma'am." She pointed me toward his office. He waved me in, adjusting his glasses like he knew the conversation wasn't gonna be pleasant. We went through the whole mess, the transfers, the address change, the attempted POA authorization. I watched his face shift from confusion to concern to thinly veiled anger. Corporate anger maybe, but it was something. He filled out a fraud report, then another form to freeze all activity, then a third one to put extra verification steps on my account. I had to initial half a dozen lines, sign twice, show my ID 3 times. But the worst part was when he said, "This happens more than you'd think." I didn't answer. I just stared at him until he cleared his throat and moved on. Before I left, he said, "Mr. Stratton, you should talk to someone, an attorney, or Adult Protective Services. This is serious." I nodded, but in my gut I knew APS wasn't the direction I wanted to go. Government agencies meant bureaucracy, red tape, waiting lists, and worst of all, maybe people thinking I couldn't manage my own life. I'm old, but I'm not incompetent. Besides, what I needed wasn't a bureaucracy. I needed an ally. Someone outside Luke's reach, someone sharp, someone who knew the system but didn't belong to it. I found her by accident. On my way out of the bank, I bumped into a woman holding a cardboard drink carrier from Starbucks, 4 cups, all steaming. She almost dropped them. "Oh, sorry, sir," she said, steadying herself. She was short, Asian American, probably late 30s, with short black hair tucked behind one ear and a blazer too nice for Springfield. "No harm done," I said. She squinted at me. "You okay? You look like you've had a morning." I chuckled dryly. "That obvious?" She smiled. "I'm a legal aid attorney. I can spot a problem from a block away." Her card said, "Margaret Chen, Senior Attorney, Legal Aid of Western Ohio." And right there, I swear I felt something shift, like the universe finally offered me a hand after pushing me down a flight of stairs. She noticed the card linger in my fingers. "If you need help," she said gently, "I mean real help, call me. I deal with elder financial exploitation cases every week." That hit me hard. Elder exploitation. Me? But her voice didn't sound condescending, just matter of fact. "Thank you," I said. "Take care of yourself, Mr. Stratton Robert." She nodded. "Take care, Mr. Stratton." When I got back to my truck, I sat there with her card in my hand, staring at the name. Legal aid, free help, someone used to fighting for people like me, someone who knew every trick predators used. I put her card in the cup holder. I wasn't ready to make the call yet, but it felt good knowing I had the option. Back home, I found another surprise waiting for me. A voicemail. Not from Luke. From a blocked number. I played it on speaker. A man's voice, low, scratchy, vaguely threatening, said, "Tell Luke he's out of time." That was it. 5 seconds. Just enough to send ice down my spine. I replayed it twice, listening for anything familiar. Nothing, just the tone. A tone that said these weren't the kind of men who sent reminders, they sent messages. I wondered if Luke knew what kind of fire he'd pulled me into, or if he thought his debt collectors would stay in the shadows. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after that, long enough to hear the refrigerator cycle, long enough for the afternoon sun to creep toward the window. At around 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door cautiously. It was Nurse Bailey again. She looked nervous. "Can I come in for just a minute?" "Of course." She stepped inside, her eyes darting around like she was making sure we were alone. She held a small flash drive between her fingers. "I shouldn't be here," she said, "but something happened last night, something I didn't tell you." My heart thudded. She continued, "After Luke and his friend left the ER, they had an argument in the parking lot, a big one. Luke got loud. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard him say, 'I have access. I'll get him to sign whatever's needed.' And then," she hesitated, "his friend said, 'You better or we both end up buried.'" The room tilted for a moment. I gripped the back of a chair. She held up the flash drive. The security camera caught the audio. The hospital isn't going to release it officially unless things escalate, but I made a copy before the file gets archived. My throat tightened. "Why?" "Because," she said, her voice trembling, "your grandson might be in danger, but so are you." I took the flash drive with a shaky hand. "Thank you, Bailey." She nodded and left quickly, leaving me holding a piece of evidence stronger than anything I'd expected. I sat at the table again, staring at the flash drive. I felt old, tired, but not defeated. Not anymore. I plugged it into my laptop. The audio was grainy, muffled, but clear enough. Luke yelling, his friend cursing. Threats. Panic. Then Luke's voice saying, "He won't fight back, he's old. What the hell is he gonna do?" Something inside me snapped. Not like glass. More like a rope pulled too tight for too long. I stood up. My body ached, but my mind was on fire. I took Margaret's business card from the cup holder in my truck and set it on the table next to the flash drive. I wasn't going to be passive anymore. I wasn't going to let my grandson ruin me. And I damn sure wasn't going to let him walk himself into an early grave because of the idiots he owed money to. The gathering wasn't about allies. It was about truth. About evidence. about reclaiming control, about being the kind of man I used to be when the world still made sense. I stared at the card, the flash drive, my notebook. Then I picked up the phone and dialed the number on Margaret Chin's card. She answered on the second ring. "Legal aid, this is Margaret." "Ms. Chin," I said, my voice steady, "this is Robert Stratton. I think it's time we talked." Her voice softened. "I'll clear my schedule. When can you come in?" "Tomorrow morning," I said. "That works. We'll figure this out together." Together, a word I hadn't heard in a long time. As I hung up the phone, I felt something settle in my chest, not peace but purpose. It was time to stop being the victim. It was time to start the fight. Margaret's office sat in a squat brick building off Limestone Street, squeezed between a dental clinic and a payday loan place, the kind of neighborhood that told you exactly what kind of people walked through her door every day. When I pulled into the parking lot the next morning, the sky was a dull gray, the kind that always made my joints ache. I stepped out of my truck slowly, careful on the curb, the flash drive in my breast pocket feeling heavier than anything that small had a right to be. Inside, the waiting room smelled faintly of toner and burnt coffee. A kid in a hoodie sat in one corner tapping his foot. An older woman argued quietly with a man who looked like her son. It made me wonder how many stories like mine were unfolding under this one roof. Margaret opened the door to her office and waved me in. She wore the same blazer as yesterday, but her hair was pulled back this time, sharper, businesslike. "Mr. Stratton," she said, offering a warm handshake, "I'm glad you came." "I'm glad you answered," I said. She gestured to a chair. It wasn't comfortable, thin padding, metal legs, but it held my weight fine enough. She sat across from me, flipping open a legal pad. "Let's start with what you told me yesterday," she said. "Your grandson took close to $30,000 from your savings." 27, I corrected, "and he forged my signature on a power of attorney packet." She nodded, not flinching. "That's very serious, but I need to know everything so we can build a strategy. Tell me the rest." I slid the flash drive across her desk. "This," I said, "is what really made me call you." She hesitated, not out of reluctance, but in that cautious, deliberate way attorneys do when they know a thing might be explosive. She plugged it in, tapped a few keys, and the audio started to play. Luke's voice came through, faint but clear enough, angry, panicked. "I have access. I'll get him to sign whatever's needed." Then the other man, rough, threatening, growled, "You better, or we both end up buried." The audio clicked off. Margaret leaned back in her chair slowly. "Well," she said, "that's something." "Something good or bad?" I asked. "Both," she said honestly. "Bad because it means the situation is more dangerous than financial exploitation alone. Good because it means he said it outside your presence. That's admissible. And that man threatening him, that helps us establish duress." Her pen scratched across the page. Notes, bullet points, arrows. It felt like watching someone map out the battlefield before war. She looked up. "Mr. Stratton, do you feel you're in immediate danger?" "No," I said, "but I think Luke is." "Do you want to protect him?" For the first time since this whole thing started, I didn't know the answer. I thought about the kid he used to be, the boy who held my hand at his mother's funeral, the teenager who'd fix my old truck without being asked. And then I thought about the man he had become, the man who forged my name, stole my savings, and dragged criminals into our lives. "I want to protect myself first," I said finally, "and if protecting myself protects him, fine." She nodded like that was the right answer. "Then we'll proceed carefully." We spent the next hour going through a plan, a detailed one, a quiet one, a plan that didn't rely on brute force or threats or confrontation. The kind of plan only an old man with patience and a young attorney with brains could pull off. First, she had me revoke any and all existing powers of attorney, real or forged. She guided me through filing a fraud packet with the county clerk, detailing the forged signature, the financial theft, and the unauthorized address changes. Next, she recommended putting a freeze on my credit, Social Security, insurance policies, and any other documents someone might try to exploit. Then she leaned forward, eyes sharp. Now we move into the part he'll never see coming. I raised an eyebrow. What's that? You act like nothing's wrong. I blinked. Come again. You're going to talk to him, she said. Not confront, not accuse, not threaten. You're going to play the role he expects, a confused, overwhelmed old man who's not sure he understands what's happening. I felt heat rise in my face. I'm not confused. No, she said calmly, but he thinks you are, and that assumption is your greatest weapon. I didn't like it, not one bit, but as she explained, I saw the sense in it. Luke needs to feel secure, she said. He needs to believe the ground he's standing on is solid, because that's when people like him slip up. They get sloppy, overconfident, and that's when you'll get the evidence we really need. Evidence? I asked. She tapped the flash drive. This is good, but it's not everything. If he admits what he did, verbally or in writing, even in a text message, that gives us leverage. And what do we do once we have leverage? I asked. We pressure, she said. Not with violence, not with threats, with the law, with exposure, with consequences. I leaned back, letting it settle in. You think I can pull this off? She smiled. Mr. Stratton, you worked the GM line for 35 years. I've met men half your age who can't hold it together long enough to sit through a meeting, let alone carry out something this delicate. You're steady, you're patient, and you have something Luke doesn't. What's that? A righteous cause. We wrapped up the meeting, and as I stepped outside, the sky had lightened a bit, still gray but less heavy. Maybe it was the air, maybe the plan, maybe the feeling that for the first time in weeks, I wasn't walking blindly into darkness. I knew what I had to do next. When I got home, I made myself a sandwich, roast beef, mustard, pickles, and sat at the table. Luke's number sat on my phone, staring at me. I took a deep breath and hit call. He answered on the second ring. Gramps. Luke, I said, softening my voice, adding just a hint of tremble, not fake, just exaggerated. I've been thinking maybe I overreacted. Maybe I misunderstood. There was a pause, then a breath of relief on his end. That's good to hear, he said. I want us to talk, properly. Maybe you can help me look over some papers. I'm not as sharp as I used to be. He swallowed so loud I heard it. Yeah, of course, I can come by tonight. Good, I said. I'll make coffee. We hung up. I sat there for a moment, staring at the phone, my heartbeat slow and steady, not from calm, but from determination settling into my bones. Then I opened my notebook and wrote the next line. Tonight I give him the rope. Tomorrow he hangs himself with it. The setup had begun. Luke showed up that evening just after 7:40. I heard his Honda long before it reached the curb. The muffler rattled, same as always. It used to annoy me. Tonight it sounded like a warning bell. I sat at the kitchen table with 2 mugs waiting, the good ones Mary bought from a flea market in Columbus years ago. I hadn't used them since she passed. Funny what a man pulls out when he needs courage. I kept the lights dim on purpose, not dark, just soft enough to make the house feel tired, vulnerable, old. I wanted him to look at me and see someone easy to manipulate. His knock came lightly, not timid, calculated. I opened the door with a small smile, the kind grandfathers are expected to wear even when they shouldn't. Hey, Gramps, he said, eyes darting past me into the kitchen as though checking for someone else. No one here but me, I assured him. Come on in. He stepped inside slowly, scanning the room like a man taking inventory. His shoulders were tight, his movements careful. I'd seen that posture before, factory workers hiding injuries so they wouldn't get sent home unpaid, men who owed things they couldn't repay. We sat at the kitchen table. I poured the coffee. He added cream and sugar, too much like he always did as a teenager. Some habits stick. You doing okay? He asked. He tried to soften his voice, but it came out strained. I'm trying to, I said with a sigh. It's been confusing, all those numbers, all those forms. I don't understand a lot of it. His eyes flicked up. That was the moment the trap snapped over his foot. He thought he had his opening. Well, that's why I'm here, he said carefully. I can walk you through anything you need. I nodded. I'd appreciate that, son, I really would. He relaxed just a little, shoulders loosened, hands unclenched. He thought the storm had passed. But storms don't pass, they circle. I went to the bank today, I said, watching his face closely. His eyes sharpened instantly. You did? Yes, they helped me freeze some things, clean up the mess. He swallowed. Mess. Just some mix-ups, I said. Stuff with the address, the email. I told them I might have been forgetful. Luke blinked. He didn't expect that lie. It disarmed him. You told them that? He asked. Yes, I said. They said it's common at my age. He nodded slowly, calculating. Right, that makes sense. His knee bounced under the table, an old nervous habit. He used to do it as a kid before spelling tests. Tonight it looked more like guilt tapping in Morse code. Luke, I said softly, I need a favor. His eyes locked on mine. Anything. I need help with some paperwork. There are forms I don't understand, things I might have signed or maybe didn't. I pushed a small folder across the table. Could you look at them? He stared at the folder like it held a bomb. What kind of forms? Legal ones, I said, voice small. Things about access, about my accounts, about who helps me if something happens. His jaw tensed. You mean power of attorney stuff? I looked down, letting my hand tremble just a bit. Yes. His breathing changed, slower, heavier, preparing the lie. Well, yeah, he said. I can help with that, it's complicated stuff. Did I sign something recently? I asked softly. Something I forgot. He froze. That moment right there was when I knew the plan was working. Margaret was right. People slip when they think they're safe. You might have, he said. I looked confused on purpose. I did. Yeah, he said quickly, leaning in. Remember, a few weeks ago, you weren't feeling well that day. You were complaining about your hands shaking. I brought over some forms to help manage stuff so you wouldn't have to. I held the silence just long enough to make him sweat. Then, I don't remember that. He pushed forward. Well, you signed, I have it in writing. I mean, you saw it. I let my voice crack, first time all night. Luke, I don't remember. He tried a soft approach, the kind manipulators use on the elderly. Gramps, it's okay. You're not losing your mind. You just forget things sometimes. Everyone does at your age. God help me, I wanted to flip that table, but I didn't. I kept my breathing slow. You're sure I signed? I whispered. Yes, he said immediately, too immediately. I nodded slowly. Could you show me? His breath caught. Show you what? The signature, I said. If I sign something, let me see it. I want to make sure I'm not imagining things. He hesitated, that tiny crack again. I don't have it with me right now. Where is it? At my place, he said, in a drawer. Could you bring it next time? He nodded a little too eager. Yes, yeah, I can do that. He thought he was winning. And that's when I reached for the second part of the trap. I slid my phone across the table, quiet, slow, deliberate. Luke, would you mind reading these texts for me? From the bank. I don't understand what they mean. He glanced at the phone. He didn't notice the tiny red recording dot on the screen facing him. Margaret had suggested it. I had forgotten, the phone on the table just right. He skimmed the messages. It's nothing, he said, just system alerts. What about the email they sent? I asked. About the account access, something about new authorization. His eyes widened for half a second. That's normal. I see. I tapped my fingers on the table as if confused. So, everything that happened, the money, the forms, the changes, I did all that, right? He hesitated too long. Then he said, yes, you did. It was a lie, a direct, provable one, spoken clearly on audio. I nodded slowly. Thank you, Luke, I feel better hearing that. He smiled, relieved. I've got you, Gramps, I'll always take care of you. We talked for a little while longer, about nothing important. Then he stood, hugged me, and left. His grip lingered the way guilty people cling to the last pieces of the lie holding them together. When the door shut behind him, I exhaled so hard my ribs hurt. I saved the recording, sent it to Margaret with the subject line. He lied. 5 minutes later, she called. Her voice was sharper than I'd ever heard it. "Robert, this is exactly what we needed." "What now?" I asked. "We move." "How?" "You're going to let him think everything is fine. Let him relax. Let him believe he's already won. And then we take everything back." I looked around my quiet house, the shadows settling in, the weight of betrayal still thick in the air. Something inside me hardened. This wasn't revenge fueled by anger anymore. It was justice. For me. For what he tried to take. For who he used to be and who he chose to become. And we weren't done. Not by a long shot. Because the next phase, the unraveling, was coming. And Luke had no idea that the old man he thought he'd fooled was about to expose everything. The morning after Luke came over, I woke up with a strange kind of calm. Not peace, no, nothing about this situation brought peace, but clarity. Like the fog that had been sitting on my chest finally lifted enough for me to see what needed to happen next. I got dressed slowly, letting my joints warm up, and made coffee strong enough to put hair on a marble statue. My kitchen felt different that morning. Still quiet, still old, but no longer suffocating. Purpose has a way of changing the air. Margaret called at 8:12 a.m. sharp. Lawyers, I guess, operate like machines when it comes to timing. "Robert," she said, "I've listened to the recording 3 times. And," I asked, "and your grandson perjured himself without even knowing it." I grunted. He's always been gifted. She ignored the joke. That recording, combined with the forged signature and the unauthorized bank activity, gives us more leverage than most victims ever get. "Leverage for what?" I asked. "To corner him," she said. "Legally, financially, morally, people do stupid things when cornered." "Luke's been doing stupid things his whole life," I muttered. "This time," she said quietly, "the consequences will finally belong to him." We arranged to meet that afternoon. But before I hung up, she said something that lingered with me. "Robert, I know you still care about him." "Doesn't matter," I said. "It does," she insisted, "because caring is why this hurts, and hurt is why you're fighting back." I didn't respond. Caring felt irrelevant at this stage. Caring was the reason I ignored the early signs. Caring was the reason he got away with $27,000 before I even noticed. Caring was a liability. But her words stuck to me anyway. After breakfast, I stepped outside and sat on the porch. The street was quiet, trash bins lined up neatly, a few neighbors walking dogs, the usual morning business. A world unchanged by my private mess. My hands wrapped around my coffee mug, absorbing its heat. I pulled out my notebook and added a new page. His lies are on tape. His signature is forged. His debt is catching up. It's time for him to see the truth. You ever write something and realize you're inching towards something irreversible? That's what it felt like. A slow shift, a point of no return coming into view. Around noon, Luke texted, "Hey Gramps, can we talk later? I think I can fix things." Fix things. That phrase again. Like the problem was the mess, not the cause. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to Margaret's office. She was standing when I walked in, sleeves rolled up, a stack of documents laid neatly on her desk. "We're initiating 3 actions," she said. "First, a notarized affidavit about the forged POA. Second, a formal fraud packet to the county. Third, a drafted civil petition against Luke for financial exploitation. We won't file it yet, but we're preparing it." "Why not file?" I asked. "Because you're not ready to burn him completely. And because once we file, he'll panic and run straight into the arms of the people who want him dead. We need him steady, predictable, and afraid of you, not them." It was a strange thing, hearing a lawyer talk strategy the way soldiers talk tactics. "What's next?" I asked. She slid papers toward me. "You're going to call him, and you're going to tell him you need him to come over tomorrow at noon." "What for?" "We're going to give him a mirror and make him look." I stared at her. "You mean confront him?" "Not with yelling," she said. "With facts, with documents, with your calmness. There's nothing more terrifying to a liar than someone who stays calm while holding the truth. I exhaled slowly. And what if he bolts? He won't, she said. You're the only man who's ever loved him without condition. He still thinks he can talk you into forgiving him. I swallowed hard at that. Margaret saw the hesitation. Robert, this isn't just about punishment, it's about clarity for him and for you. I nodded, though it wasn't agreement, it was acceptance. On the drive home, I replayed every memory of Luke I still had room to hold. Him laughing in the summer sun at Buck Creek. Him helping Mary bake Christmas cookies while he snuck chocolate chips behind her back. Him crying at 16 when the world took his mother. Was there a moment when he turned? A single point where he broke off the path? Or was he always drifting, and I just never looked hard enough to see the direction? That question sat heavy on my chest. That evening I called him. He answered on the first ring. Gramps, he said, breathless, maybe hopeful, I was gonna call you. I need you here tomorrow at noon, I said. What's going on? We need to fix things, I said, like you said. Another pause, fear swirled under his voice. Are you sure? I mean, yeah, okay, noon. Good, I said, we'll sort it out. I hung up before he could ask more. The rest of the night passed slow. I sat in the living room with the TV on mute, letting the flicker of light play across the walls. I felt old, yes, but not defeated, and not scared. There's something powerful about clarity. It makes even shaking hands feel steady. But when I finally climbed into bed, the memories came in waves. Voices, faces, moments I never thought I'd have to re-examine under the shadow of betrayal. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering what Mary would have said, wondering what Cynthia would have said, wondering what kind of grandfather I'd been if the boy I loved ended up here. That's the part of revenge no one talks about, the self-blame that surfaces once things start to unravel. The questions that claw at your insides. Did I miss something? Did I fail him? Did I make him this way? I didn't have answers. But I knew tomorrow would force both of us to confront the truth, whatever shape it took. Because noon was coming. And Luke was about to face the version of me he thought had died years ago. The man who didn't blink in the face of hard truth. The man who survived war, loss, and time itself. The old man he underestimated. The old man who wasn't done fighting. Noon came slower than any hour of my life. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Mary used to sew, where Cynthia did her homework, where Luke colored pictures of fire trucks with broken crayons. The house was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. I laid everything out in front of me. The affidavit. The printed bank statements, screenshots of the transfers, the freeze orders, the fraud packet, and the recording transcript Margaret typed up herself. Not to threaten him, not to scare him, just to reveal the truth. At 12:07 his car pulled up, late but not surprising. He sat there a minute, engine running, probably working up the courage, or the lie. He finally stepped out. His shoulders were hunched, his eyes ringed with sleeplessness. He walked up the porch steps like a man headed for sentencing. When I opened the door, he managed a thin smile. Hey, Gramps. Come in, I said. He stepped inside and immediately saw the papers on the table. He froze in the doorway. What is all that? The truth, I said. I motioned for him to sit. He didn't move at first. Then he lowered himself into the chair like it might break beneath him. I sat across from him, my hands folded calmly on the table. Luke, I said quietly, I'm going to talk. You're going to listen, all right. He nodded, throat tight. I slid the first paper across the table, the one with the forged signature. This isn't mine, I said. He stared at it, blinking hard. Gramps, Don't, I said, not yet. I pushed the bank statements next. These transfers, $27,000, you took them. He opened his mouth again, but his voice cracked instead of forming words. And then, I said, sliding the transcript across the table, you lied to my face, and you lied again last night. His eyes flicked to the transcript. The color drained from his cheeks. I felt something break loose inside me. Not anger, not triumph, not bitterness, just sorrow. Deep, heavy sorrow. I trusted you, I whispered. You were my daughter's boy, my blood, and you tried to take everything I have left. He clenched his jaw, tears pooling in his eyes. I didn't know what to do, he choked. I was drowning, Gramps. I owed guys who don't wait. I panicked. I didn't think straight. I thought I could fix it before you noticed. I thought. You thought I couldn't fight back. I finished for him. He closed his eyes. A tear slipped down his cheek. Yeah, he whispered. I let that sit in the air. A whole lifetime between us. Years of love. And this one brutal truth. I don't hate you, I said. He looked up sharply, like he didn't expect that. Maybe he didn't think he deserved anything but rage. I don't hate you, I repeated. But what you did, it can't be undone, and it cannot go without consequence. His breathing sped up. Are you calling the cops? Please, Gramps, I'll pay it back. I'll get a job, I didn't call the police, I said. Not yet. His eyes widened with hope. But I met with an attorney. Hope died instantly. And I filed preliminary fraud reports with the bank and county clerk. Gramps, I have a civil petition drafted against you. I haven't filed it, but I will if I have to. He covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook. I didn't reach out to comfort him. That was the old me, the one who kept giving chances that nobody earned. Luke, I said, you have one chance, one path out of this, and you're going to take it. What do you want me to do? You're going to sign a restitution agreement for every dollar you stole, legal and binding. He nodded, wiping at his eyes. You're going to attend debt counseling through legal aid every week. Another nod. You're going to cut ties with the men threatening you, and you're going to give Margaret their names. He looked up sharply. Gramps, they'll kill me. No, I said. They'll stop using you the second you're useless to them. They'll find someone else. That's how parasites work. He swallowed hard. And finally, I said, voice low and steady, you're going to stay the hell away from my finances, permanently. No access, no requests, no tricks. That part of your life ends today. He nodded again, slower, heavier, like the weight of it was settling into his bones. Then he whispered, I'm sorry, Gramps, I really am. I know, I said. I believe you're sorry right now, but sorry isn't enough. This is your last road. You walk it or I burn everything down around you. He blinked at me through tears. I didn't realize how strong you still were. I met his eyes. I'm 81, I said, not dead. He let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. We went through the paperwork. Margaret wrote it clean, simple, no loopholes. Luke signed everything with shaking hands. When he was done, he sat back, staring at the table like he didn't know who he was anymore. You should go, I said. He stood, walked to the door, paused. Gramps, he said softly. Yes. Do you still want me in your life? That question landed harder than anything else in this whole ordeal. I thought about it for a long moment. Then I said, I want the boy I raised, the one who loved his mother, the one who helped me fix my truck. I don't know if that boy is still in you, but if he is, find him. He nodded. He looked 10 years younger and 10 years older all at once. I'm going to try, he said quietly. I mean it. Good, I said, because this is your last chance. He stepped onto the porch. The door closed behind him. And just like that, the house went quiet again. I sat down at the kitchen table looking at the papers, the coffee mugs, the ghost of a life that didn't exist anymore. I felt old, tired, but not defeated. You want the truth. Revenge didn't feel good. Justice didn't feel good either. Nothing felt good. But something did feel right. Drawing the line. Claiming myself again. Refusing to vanish quietly the way so many old men do when the world starts treating them like shadows. I looked at the empty chair across from me and whispered softly into the quiet. I'm still here. And this time I believed it.